Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan et kol darkav, lemo Yisrael ketavniot, lekol hadevarim, shebashamayim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King. Pictures of all things heavenly. Amen. Well, getting up on your toes at holy, holy, holy is the essence of what the Torah portion is about today. I was looking at the Torah portion from last year, and I didn't teach on this, but 2 years ago I taught on it, but nowhere near as clear as what I'm going to teach this week. This is just a Torah study. That's all we're doing. We're just doing a study of Hebrew words and looking at verses that have those Hebrew words so you can learn one concept and one concept only. Only thing is, there's 6 different words to look at to see that concept, and I'm going to show you all 6. And all it's about is getting something up high. That's all it is. This is the essence of the acts of Judaism, all the acts of Judaism. This is what the rabbis say. The rabbis say that all of Judaism, the thing that it is, the target it is supposed to produce, like looking at it in a microscope, that if you hone down tighter and tighter and tighter and smaller and smaller and smaller, that the essence of Judaism is humility. Humility. And that the worst midah you can possibly have is pride. Now, in Hebrew, pride is ge'avah. Ge'avah. And it basically means up, high. That's all it means. Being up. Worst thing we can do is be up. Be big. Be too much of ourselves. And all of Judaism works together to create in us humility. Anavah, humility. Smallness, the ability to bear pain is what that word means. So, it's so funny, I mean, it's just ironic that really the essence of Judaism is being small. And yet, all of Judaism is lifted up and made high. Every single aspect of Judaism. Every prayer, every act we do, tzitzit, Shabbat, lighting the candles for Shabbat, doing the festivals, all of it is supposed to be lifted up high. That's what I'm going to show you. All of Judaism, every act of Judaism is lifted up high. And it produces us being small. I think it's amazingly ironic, but that's how it works. So the title of the Torah portion is Raise Up All That Is Holy. Uh-oh. Okay. All right, we're good. All right. It's not called Raise Up Everything. It used to be called Raise Up All That Is Holy. It's now called Everything Jewish is Raised Up. Everything Jewish is raised up. It's the same thing. It means the same thing, but I think that that's simpler to wrap our heads around. Everything Jewish is lifted up or raised up. Very simple concept. Torah portion is B'ha'alotcha, when you cause to rise, and so that's why I'm teaching on this. So Numbers 8 says, speaking to Aharon, the Lord said to Moshe, speak to Aharon and say to him, when you cause to rise, in ha'alotcha, in making to rise the lamps, that means like putting them up high. In making the lamps high, when Aaron makes the lamps high, the 7 lamps shall light toward the face of the menorah. That's what it says in Hebrew. The 7 lamps shall light toward the face of the menorah. Now you might think that means this. Say I'm the menorah, and the menorah is about 6 feet tall. Say I'm the menorah, and the light goes out like from my face. Not what it means. What it means is you have the middle branch, and the other branches going out, and all the branches going out, their lamp faces toward the face of the menorah, the middle of the menorah. That's what it's talking about. So all these lamps, they're not turned this way, they're turned inward toward the menorah itself. The 7 lamps shall light up toward the face of the menorah. Aaron did so. He raised up. Now this says ha'elah. Ha'elah. We have B'ha'alotcha, and then we have ha'elah. It is the same word. It's the same word. This is what one of the words we're going to talk about. Ha'elah. So he raised up the lamps toward the face of the menorah, just as the Lord established to Moshe. This is how the menorah was made. It was made of hammered gold. From its base to its blossoms, the menorah was made exactly like the Menorah, the vision that the Lord had shown to Moshe. Where did the Lord show Moshe the vision? 3 weeks ago. Not on the mountain. What? Good. In the mountain. In the mountain. Be-hahar. Not al-hahar. Not on the mountain. In the mountain. Just not a cave. Just actually in the stone of the mountain. And remember, that was because Mount Sinai is the ultimate picture of humility. And so that's why all the pictures of heaven were shown in Mount Sinai, because it produces humility. It's all about humility. Exodus 25:40 says, now see and make according to their picture, their pattern, tavnit. You were shown in the mountain. Now the reason I have this verse is because this is the one about the menorah. This is the verse. This is the picture verse about the menorah. There's other picture verses about the tabernacle, about the vessels, about the ark, about this and that. But this is the one specifically about the menorah. God showed it to him in the mountain, in a vision. And so, that's why I have this verse. It says, Re'eh, see, va'asa, that you make, v'tavnitam, that you make according to the patterns, asher ata, that you, mara'eh bahar, that you saw in a vision on the mountain. So, the whole point is that everything that was shown to Moshe, I'm going to say this for the billionth time, Judaism is not laws. It is not laws. It's pictures. They say laws just because that's how we as human beings are. We're lazy. We want to be told what to do. We want somebody to come say, do this. And we go, yes, sir, I will do it. Oh, now you get a pat on the head and you're happy. That's how we are. We're lazy. We're very shallow and lazy. But God said, Israel, I'm giving you all this stuff. Look at it, let it talk to you as you do it, and you'll learn about me. That's its whole purpose. So all that stuff is raised up in some form or another. Now, Numbers 8, this is the second part of the Torah portion we're going to look at. We saw B'ha'alotcha, when you raise up the menorah lamps. Now we're going to look at something else being raised up, another picture being raised up. You are to bring the Levites before the Lord, and the Israelites are to lay their hands on them. Aharon is to lift up. Now, this is the word hanif, another word we're going to look at. We're going to look at hanif. He shall hanif the Levites as a waving, tenufa. Can you see those two words similar? Hanif, tenufa. It's the same three-letter anchor. What's the word? Root, which is nuf. And it means to lift up. To lift up and wave. Like lift it up and move it. Shake it. Move it back and forth. Aaron is to lift up hanif the Levites as a tenufa before the Lord. Literally lift them up, like crowd surfing. Literally lift them up, not figuratively. Before the Lord for the Israelites, so that they may be ready to do the work of the Lord. Now, you're going to see that there's three different lifting ups here. There's three different verses that say that the Levites are lifted up. And last week we saw the three divisions of the Levites. Do you remember? You had Kahat, which produced the priests. Then you had Gershon. Then you had Merari. Those are the three families. There's three wavings. So Rashi, very logically, one of the greatest commentators of Judaism, says it's the three families. The first one is Kahat, second one is Gershon, third one is Merari. And this is literally lifting them up and waving them, human beings. Not lifting up like something to represent them, literally lifting them. So the first one was Kahat being waved. Then there's another verse that says, you shall present the Levites before Aharon and his sons and lift them as a tenufah. There's that word again, a tenufah. Waving before the Lord. This is Gershon being waved. And then the next verse, verse 15. After the Levites come to serve in the tent of meeting, you shall cleanse them and lift them. Hanafta, same word. Hanafta, same root. Lift them up as a wave offering, a tenufah, a waving. This is weird. I mean, it's just weird. But this is what they did. And by the way, this is after they went in the mikvah and shaved all the hair off their bodies, including eyebrows, underarm hair, pubic hair, leg hair, back hair, chest hair, everything. Why would they do that? Yes, you do. You know exactly. Picture it in your head. No hair, gone in the water, come up out of the water, broke the water, came out. They got no hair on them. What are they? Right, they're babies. That's exactly right. That's why they did it. They're like babies. They're being born again. And they're now being offered, waved before the Lord in 3 chunks. This is what Rashi says. 3 wavings are mentioned in this section. The first verse, verse 11, refers to the sons of Kahat. That's the priests. They were responsible for the work involving the most holy objects, the ark, the table, all the vessels of ministry. The second, verse 13, refers to the sons of Gershon. That's one family of the Levites. Anybody remember what Gershon was responsible for? Was it the cloth stuff, or was it the lumber, the lumberjacks, the boards and the pillars? No. It's either the fabric, the curtains, the tents, or the wood, the pillars, the giant pillars. Anybody remember? Okay. So this is referring to the sons of Gershon. Therefore it is stated with regard to them, a waving before the Lord. Verse 13. For even they were assigned holy work, the curtains and the clasps. There's Gershon, curtains and the clasps, which could be seen in the Holy of Holies. The third waving was for the lumberjacks, for the sons of Merari. Verse 15. Now, there's a bunch of different translations that you might see in your Bible. I don't know what Bible you have, but when you look it up, you might see for a tenufah, it might say a wave offering. It might say a heave offering. Heave, like get it up. Heave offering. It might say a lifted up offering, or it might say an elevation offering. These are all synonymous, except for wave. The other 3 don't have the sense of movement, right? Just up. But my question is it just up, or is it back and forth? We're going to come back to this. Here's an illustration of the tenufah. This is either Kahat, Merari, or Gershon, one of the 3. And they're being crowd surfed. They're being waved as a wave offering. And they got no hair on their body anywhere. They're just like babies. Isn't that amazing that God would put that in the Bible? And by the way, I was talking to somebody this week, and I said, and then the Levites had to shave all their hair off their body, everything, all their hair, eyebrows, head hair, beard, everything. And he goes, what? That's weird. I said, didn't you ever read that? Didn't you ever read that in the book of Bamidbar, Numbers? And he goes, I don't know, I don't recognize that. I said, the problem is a lot of times we read without really reading. Nothing stops us to go, what? That is so weird. Well, the first time I read this, I stopped and went, that is so weird, because I never read it before. So that's how we're supposed to be reading. And by the way, if you don't stop and go, that's weird, then you're not really, really reading. You're just reading the surface level. But there's so much more that we don't know. They just did it once. Yeah. 3 of them. No, it's not a yearly thing, just one time. This was to prepare them to do their work. So here's my bottom line. Everything Jewish is raised up. You ever been to a Jewish wedding? We ever been to a good Jewish wedding? If you went to a good Jewish wedding, they lifted up the bride and the groom up on chairs. This is not a tradition. This is a picture. Every single Jewish wedding has the bride and groom lifted up. Why? Because in ancient days, they would be lifted up on 2 thrones, on 2 chairs that would be carried. It was like on the shoulders, carrying a carriage that they would walk with. And the priests that carried it, no, they weren't priests, they were just Jews. The Jews who carried it were they had to be 6'4", at least, 6'4", to get that thing really raised up. Because they're carrying it on their shoulders. There's it's called the aperion, and the woman is in it, and she's coming to the bride. She's being carried in it to the to the bridegroom. And it had to get way up, lifted up. This is the remnant of the aperion. This is the remnants of it. You can see it in Song of Solomon, by the way. It describes this, it's called the wedding litter, I believe, Litter. And it describes it beautifully. So this is the remnants of it. Every Jewish wedding, the bride and the groom are lifted up. Why? Because the bride and the groom are God and his bride. God and Israel, lifted up in heaven. So that's one example. Here's Jerusalem, going to be lifted up in the kingdom. Now, Jerusalem is a very low mountain, so it's not very high at all. It can barely be called a mountain. But in the kingdom, it is going to raise up very, very high, and all the area around it's going to be lowered as a plain. Why Jerusalem lifted up? Because Jerusalem is lifted up in heaven. Very simple. Over there, on the right side, is a priest. What has he got in his hand? Anybody know? Say it again. First fruits, Bikurim. This is the Bikurim, the first fruits. And they're lifted up as a tenufah and waved. And the tabernacle, every single thing that built the tabernacle was brought as a teruma. Teruma, I've taught this several times. Teruma is just like a tenufah, only the motion is different. One is up, and one is up and back and forth. So the question we're going to come up to is a tenufah back and forth, or just up? Is a teruma back and forth, or is it just up? Because they're slightly different, because they're different words, and it's important. God stuck it in there for a reason. So everything that built the tabernacle was a teruma, a lifted up offering, so that everything in the tabernacle is a picture of heaven. And there's the temple over there. Everything that built the temple is up on Mount Zion. Everything that constructed the temple, the vessels, the altar, the house itself, everything is lifted up onto the mountain and put there as a picture of God's house. So everything in Judaism. Oh, and everything that happens in the temple and the tabernacle. What happens in the temple and tabernacle? Really? Wow. Okay. Sacrifices. What else? Offerings. What else? That's it? Tithes. Worship. Music. What else? Prayer. Come on. What happens in the tabernacle, in the temple? Kiddush, Shabbat, the festivals. Anything else? Okay. All that stuff is lifted up at some point. All of it. All of it is lifted up as a teruma or a tenufah at some point. So that tells me that God is trying desperately to communicate to us that every single thing in Judaism is lifted up. Everything. 2, 3, 4, 5. I told you 6 words. It's 5 words. 5 words that I'm going to teach you. Nuf, say nuf. Say nasa. It's not NASA. I just saw that. I never saw it. I just looked at it and saw NASA. Okay, say nasa. Sorry. Ola. Room. And kum. Fairly easy to remember. Nuf, nasa, ola, room, and kum. We're going to look at these words. All of them mean slightly different things, but they're all the same picture. Lifting up. Let's do nuf first, because this is what was done with the Levites, Kahat, Gershon, and Merari. This is what happened to them. A tenufah comes from nuf. Exodus 29:24. This, by the way, I only gave a few examples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's dozens and dozens, but we only had room for this. Exodus 29:24. You shall take the fat from the ram and the right thigh, the loaf of bread, 1 cake of bread, and 1 wafer, and put all the, and don't picture a little wafer cracker. That's not what it is. It's like pita bread, only it's matzah, kind of like pita bread. Put all these in the hands of Aaron and wave them as a wave offering. Now what it says is, make them a tenufah. So it sounds like it's back and forth, waving, back and forth. Exodus 25:24, and they came, as many as were willing-hearted, and brought bracelets, earrings, and rings, jewels of gold, every man that waved a waving. Now, this is talking about the stuff they collected to build the tabernacle. And I just told you it was a terumah. What does this call it? A tenufah. So all the stuff, everything that built the tabernacle, everything Jewish, is both a terumah and a tenufah. Both. Because here in Exodus 35, it calls it a tenufah, but back in Exodus 25, when they gathered everything, when it first mentions it, it calls it a terumah. So this, so far, it looks like a waving. Every man that waved, a waving. Hanif tenufah. Same word. Hanif tenufah. From the root nuf, or nof. Leviticus 7. Anyone who brings a peace offering to the Lord, his own hands shall bring it. The fat on the breast, he shall bring it. The breast to wave it, hanif. Therefore the breast, what part of the cow is the breast? The brisket? I believe that's the brisket. Is waved, hanif, as a waving, tenufah, before the Lord. Every single sacrifice that's a peace offering. Every single peace offering, every single shalem, there's a breast that's waved, and then you're going to see there's another part that something else happens to it. Numbers 18, to Aaron. I give you charge of my offerings, even all the holy gifts of the sons of Israel, as a portion to your sons, as a perpetual allotment. A perpetual allotment. That means forever. That means this never stopped. When Christ came, it never stopped. It did not stop. It is a perpetual allotment that to Aaron and to his sons, the priests, they're in charge of all holy things. All holy things on this planet, period. God set it up like that. He never changed his mind. In fact, he confirms this covenant in Ezekiel with the priests and says, forever there will be priests who are in charge of my holy things. Forever. That's an aside. As a portion, and to your sons as a perpetual allotment. Also yours belongs the offering of their gift, even all of the tenufot, the wave offerings of the sons of Israel. Now, so far, it sounds like nuf is shaking, yes? Back and forth. So it's lifted up and it's moved back and forth, and this is how it was done. The priest would get it, he'd put it on his hands, lift it up, and go like this. 3 times. Back and forth toward the altar. And that's what made it a shaking. It doesn't mean like shaking, real fast and violently. It's just back and forth, back and forth. And Psalm 48. This is one of my favorite verses. It talks about this low little city of Jerusalem and calls it Yafeh Nof. Yafeh means beautiful. Nof. What does Nof mean? What does Nof mean? Elevated, height. Height. Now, in King James, it's a horrible, horrible translation here. You know what it says? Beautiful for situation. And I even, back when I first got born again, they used to sing a song from Psalm 48, beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth. And I would think to myself, beautiful for, how can a city be a beautiful, like for my situation? I got a girlfriend who hates me. Zion's beautiful for my situation. It just made no sense. Nothing made sense. Because it's bad translation. It's just simply bad translation. It's not situation. It's nof, height, elevated. And that's what it says. Mount Zion is a gorgeous height, but it's not that high. So it ain't talking about Jerusalem. What's it talking about? Jerusalem in heaven. Joy of the whole earth. Really? Mount Zion is the joy of the whole earth? Everybody wants to destroy it. Everybody wants to kick the Jews out of it and take it for themselves. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth. No, it is not. But heaven is going to be. Zion is going to be. It may not now, but it's going to be. It's going to be. The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion on the sides of the north. It's not in the north of anything. It's not in the north of Israel. It's not in the north of Judah. It's not in the north of Africa or Middle East or the world or anything. It's not in the north of anything. So obviously it's not talking about Jerusalem on earth. It's talking about Jerusalem in the far north. Way, 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 way up. Yafeh Nof, joy of the whole earth, is Mount Zion way up north, the city of the great king. So Nof means elevated, but it's also back and forth, back and forth. Now let's come to Nasa. We just did this 2 weeks ago and last week, that when the Jews were counted, when Israel was counted, when the family of Kahat was counted, when the family of Gershon was counted, when all of Israel was counted, it always uses the same word. It does not say count, it says lift the head. Every single time, lift the head. Why lift? Get it up high. Now the word is nasa. Say nasa. You ever heard the word banner? Like people sing about your banner over me is love. Bad translation. Yeah, and also that, Jehovah Nisi, the Lord is my banner. Not good translation. It's the Lord is my lifted up thing. Because it's this word nasa or nes. Now, there's several different versions of this word. What's the word? Conjugations of this word. Nasa, like different ways to use it. Nasa, nes, which means was translated banner or flagpole sometimes. Naso, lift it up. Tisa, when you lift up. And se'u, which we looked at last week. Se'u. Nasa, we looked at last week because the Torah portion was called Naso. Now, Exodus 30, Numbers chapter 1, Numbers chapter 4, Numbers chapter 26 all say the same word for counting. When you lift the head, kitisa. Lift the head, se'u et rosh. Lift the head, naso et rosh. Lift the head, naso et rosh. And lift the head, se'u et rosh. Why does God want to lift Israel's head? To get it up. Get it up to heaven. Because, and you may not agree with me about this, but I am 100% convinced of it, God created the Jews very, very weird. as a picture of him. As a picture of him. Full of big mouth, opinionated, argumentative people. Because we're a picture of him. We're passionate. Everything's, they used to, I don't know if they still say, but the kids would say, why you gotta be so extra? They'd say that in school to the teachers. If the teachers got passionate about anything, why you gotta be so extra? So Jews are extra. We are extra. We're me'odecha. You're extra. You're oomph. Because that's how God made us. We didn't make ourselves like that. God made us like that. We're a picture of him. So all of Israel, he says, lift your head. Lift your head. Get up. Get up to heaven. Because you're a picture of me. So that's nasa, or naso, or nes. Now this one you're familiar with, I think. Everybody should be familiar with this. Ola. When you go to Israel, what's that called? When you when you immigrate to Israel, it's called making Aliyah. That's this word, making Aliyah. A person who makes Aliyah is called an Ola. Same word, Ola. If there's a bunch of them, they're called Olim. Now I want you to look at the emboldened words. Allah, Ola, Olim, Alav, B'ha'alotcha, Allah, Ali. All the same word. Our Torah portion is called B'ha'alotcha. That's this word. When you get up, when you lift up. Why doesn't God say Easterners? When we pray, instead of Olim, why doesn't he say Easterners instead of people who go up? I mean, when we pray, don't we face the east? And we face Jerusalem? That's what Daniel did. Said 3 times a day he would face Jerusalem and pray. Because that's what Jews do. They face Jerusalem when they pray. So why didn't he say, when you come to Israel, you're called an Easterner? Kedemi. But instead he says, you're an Ola. You're one who goes up. Because if you go up to Israel, or you go up to Jerusalem, you're going up to God. That's what you're supposed to be doing, is going up to God. And that's why he said it. So here's the history of where that came from. Genesis 22. God said to Abraham, take now your son, your only son. Was it his only son? No. Who is his other son? Ishmael. But God says your only son. What a slap in the face to Ishmael. Unless it's his only son. And it was. Yes, it was, but no, it was not. Physically, it was not. But pictorially, it absolutely was his only son. And by the way, you may not know this, that all of Orthodox or Hasidic Judaism teaches that Isaac was the first sacrifice. Olah. Burnt offering is olah. It's this word. Olah. Burnt offering is an olah. And all the rabbis teach that Isaac was an olah, an offering for Israel. And yet at the same time, they teach that a human being can't die for somebody else's sins. But they all teach, anciently, that Isaac was a sacrifice for Israel's sins. And this is when it happened, at Mount Moriah. Take now your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go into the land of Moriah, and make him into an olah. That is a burnt offering. Make him a burnt offering. Did he make him a burnt offering? So he disobeyed God. If you think real literally, that's what people would say. God says, make him into a burnt offering. Did Abraham make Isaac into a burnt offering? No. God stopped him. So therefore, Abraham disobeyed God. But it's ridiculous. God says, make him an Allah. Make him ascend there for a burnt offering, for an olah. Make him Allah for an olah. He says it twice. So he was definitely an olah, because God said for him to do that. And he did exactly what God told him to do, so he was an olah. upon one of the mountains which I will tell you. This is very, very important. That the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, is the perfect picture of Yeshua. It's the perfect picture of Yeshua as the Olah, the burnt offering. It's a perfect picture that a human being, somebody in flesh, can die for the sins of Israel, because that's what the Jews say Isaac did. Genesis 28, behold, a ladder set up on the earth. This is Jacob. He has a dream. He sees a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were olim. They were, what is it called when you go to Israel? But not in Hebrew, in English, what's it called? Emigrate. They're emigres. They're emigrating. They're olim. They're emigrating to where? No, to heaven. There's a ladder going up to where? You're not even reading. Where did the ladder go? The top of it reached to, and now they're emigrating, these angels. And by the way, it wasn't a straight ladder, it was a spiral ladder. And these angels are emigrating to Israel. They're making Aliyah to Israel in heaven, to Jerusalem in heaven, to Zion in heaven. They're going up. They're making Aliyah and descending on it. They're olim. This is why Jews call immigrants to Israel olim. This is why we're going up to God if we emigrate. Exodus 19, and Mount Sinai was all in smoke. When is this? When is this? Oh, guys, come on. When is this? Oh, Lord. What festival is it? What? Okay, thank you. You scared me there for a second. We just celebrated it. Mount Sinai was all in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke alav, like the smoke of a blast furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. So all offerings, it says, God says, I want the smoke to alav, to ascend so I can smell it. That's what he says. How stupid. God has to smell smoke? Barbecue? That's ridiculous. So obviously it's a picture because it doesn't make any sense otherwise. God doesn't have to smell smoke. It doesn't make him happy to smell smoke. It makes him happy to have that picture of people ascending to God. And so every offering, the smoke ascends to God. Now in this case, the smoke is ascending like this. Like a blast furnace. Same picture though. Numbers 8, and Aaron did so, and he made to arise B'ha'alotcha, the lamps toward the face of the menorah. This is in our Torah portion today, as the Lord established to Moshe. Joshua 15, and now here's why we say when you go to Israel, you go up. Here's why, specifically. When you go to Jerusalem, from anywhere in the world, you could be going from the north of Israel, from Tzfat in the north of Israel. If you go to Jerusalem, doesn't matter where you are, you ascend, you go up. And here's why we say this. Joshua 15 gives the borders of Jerusalem. And the border Allah went up by the valley of the son of Hinnom to the south side of the Jebusite. The Jebusite is Jerusalem. The same is Jerusalem. And the border went up, Allah, to the top of the mountain before the valley of Hinnom westward. So the borders, plural, of Jerusalem go up. That's ridiculous. You cannot have borders, plural, go up to a city. You could have a border go up to a city, but not borders, plural. It makes no sense. And so this is what the rabbis say. You could be coming from north, south, east, or west, and you're going to go up. Which there's no place on the planet like that. And it's not a high mountain. Again, it is not a high mountain. It's very low. But no matter where you come from, if you go to Jerusalem, you are ascending to where? Heaven. right. No matter where you come from, if you go to Jerusalem, and you come to Jerusalem and you see the temple and you see the sacrifices and you see the Jewish people and you see the prayers and you see the songs and you see the festivals and you see the sacrifices, you're going up to heaven to learn about God, no matter where you come from. To me, that is one of the greatest concepts God ever gave us, because it's a picture of all the Gentiles coming to the Jews to learn about God. And that's the bottom line. Isaiah 40. This is really what this ministry is called to. Get up on a high mountain, Zion, gospel bringer. So who's the gospel bringer in this verse? Let's read it again. Get up on a high mountain, Zion, gospel bringer. Who's the gospel bringer? Zion. Zion is the gospel bringer. It's not get up on a high mountain and yell to Zion, oh, Zion, come to know Christ. It's Zion is the gospel bringer. And Zion, up on a high mountain, preaches to the whole world what God is. All the nations come up to Zion. And there it is again. Get up, Ali. It says, Gavoa alilach. Gavoa alilach. Meveseret Tzion. Get up on a high mountain, Zion, gospel bringer. Lift up your voice. And then he says it again. Jerusalem, gospel bringer. In case you were confused about it. He says it twice. Zion is the gospel bringer. Jerusalem is the gospel bringer. Jews don't need you to tell them the gospel. You need to learn the gospel from the Jews. Now, you may not like that, but that is the truth. And that's been around from the beginning of time. That God set these patterns from the beginning of time. That to the Jewish people, they have every, total, the pictures, the images, the understandings of God. He gave all of them to the Jews. And if anybody wants to know God, they have to go up, see that stuff, and learn from it. And nothing's changed. So if you really want to know the gospel, listen to what I'm saying. If you really want to know what the gospel is and what it says, it's complicated. It's not simple. It's a big, giant story. And the only way to see it is in the pictures of Judaism, because that's the way God set it up. So you go up to the mountain, and the mountain teaches you. Everything on that mountain teaches us. And that mountain is Zion. It is Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is to say to the cities of Judah, behold your God. Behold your God. What do you mean, behold your God? Look up at Jerusalem. Look up at Zion and see God. Look at the festivals. Look at the cycles of the priests and the Levites and the tithes and the offerings and the sacrifices. And it will preach the gospel to you. And you'll see God. Here's another word, room. Now it could be room. It could be Rome. Unfortunate, but it could be Rome. It could be Ram, like we sang Ram Venisa. Ram Venisa. It could be Yarum. It could be Teruma. Now there's that word that we were talking about earlier, that everything was lifted up to create the tabernacle. What's the other word for everything that was lifted up to create the tabernacle? Tenufa. Very good. Tenufa. Now we have Teruma, and it could also be Romama. This is translated exalt, Romama. All the same words. Exodus 25. Speak to the children of Israel that they bring to me a teruma. Say teruma. Now a teruma, everything that is a teruma belongs to the priests. Doesn't matter what it is. Animals, people, food, firstborn, fruit and veg, anything, bread, anything. Anything that is a teruma that's lifted up to height exalted, is given and belongs to the priest. That's the pattern God set up. Speak to the children of Israel that they bring me a terumah of every man that gives willingly with his heart. You shall take my terumah. And that was everything to create the tabernacle. Exodus 29. Look how many times it has this word in it. In Exodus 29. Terumah, huram, same root. Terumah, terumah, terumah. 5 times. Let's see what it's about. You shall consecrate the breast of the wave offering. Now that's the tenufah that we saw. Tenufah, back and forth. Up and then back and forth. The breast of the wave offering and the thigh. Now the thigh is different. The thigh is not the breast. It's a different part of the meat. Can't remember what it's called. Anybody know what it's called? Say it again. No, not sirloin. Anything on the back half of the cow we don't eat. It might be the shank. Might be. Maybe. And I've taught that before, actually. I just can't remember. You shall consecrate the breast of the tenufah and the thigh of the terumah. So who does the thigh belong to? No. No. Oh, what'd you say? Oh, I thought you said grease. Yes, the priest. Can I hear from somebody else besides these two? They're doing great, but not everybody else is. So, who does the tenufah belong to? Tenufah. The priests. Who does the terumah belong to? Tell me. Priests. Let's try again. Who does the tenufah belong to? Priest. Who does the terumah belong to? So, everything lifted up belongs to the priest. Everything. Everything. And everything Jewish is lifted up. Listen to me again. Everything that's lifted up belongs to the priests. Yes? Yes. Are there priests still? Yes. Okay. God said, I'm never going to break that covenant. There will always be priests, and this stuff belongs to you, priests. Tenufah and terumah. Everything lifted up is Jewish. Everything Jewish is lifted up. And it all belongs to the priests. So who do you think is going to teach you God? The priests. That's the way God set it up. The thigh is the shank. Thank you for looking that up. Thank you, Google. So, everything that is Jewish belongs to the priests. Yes? Yes. God says, I'm going to make my people a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So why don't all those people that are part of the kingdom of priests, that are believers, do and teach Judaism? It's a very, very simple 1 + 1 = 2. And if you can get your head wrapped around that, then you can actually read the Bible in order, and it makes sense. But if you can't get your head wrapped around that very simple construct, it's very, very confusing. Here it is. The terumah and the tenufah belong to the priest. So he says the thigh of the terumah that was lifted, hunaf, and that was waved, huram. It shall be for Aharon and his sons as their portion. How long? Forever. It is a heave offering, a terumah. It shall be a heave offering from the sons of... What? Look at that weird repetition. It is a terumah. It shall be a terumah. Why would he say that? Because it's forever. But you go into any church in America or Africa or Scandinavia, you're not going to see Judaism. It's supposed to be there. Judaism is supposed to be in the believers of God and the believers of Yeshua. It's supposed to be there. But if it's not there, they ain't nothing to look at. There's nothing to look at and learn from. Because these are the things, we'll call it the curriculum. This is the part of the curriculum that we learn from, but it's not there. Hopefully God returns it shortly. Amen. Numbers 5. Every terumah of all the holy things of the children of Israel, which they bring to the priest, shall be his. Now, you can spiritualize this if you want and say, oh, when Christians sing praises unto the Lord, they're giving it unto God and it belongs unto God. Okay. But you don't learn from the curriculum that God created. 2 Samuel 22. The Lord lives, and blessed be my rock, and Yarum is the God of the rock of my salvation. God is Yarum. That means high, lifted up, exalted. Psalm 34, oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us romama his name together. Same verb, root. Let us romama. Say romama. Romama. That means exalt his name together. Why would we want to lift his name up? Holy. Right. It's holy. And therefore it is. Can't get there? Everything lifted up is holy. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Everything lifted up is. That doesn't say holy. You're just not going to go to that word, are you? Everything lifted up is what? Jewish. Jewish. Everything lifted up is Jewish. And this says God's name is Romama. Exalt. Lift up his name. Therefore, just like everything else in Judaism, God's name is Jewish. Jewish. I know it's a different way to think. I get it. I really do. It's a different way to think because you've been told the world has been told for 2,000 years, anything but Jewish. Anything but Jewish. You can say holy, you can say exalted, you can say magnified, not Jewish. But everything Jewish is lifted up and exalted and holy. Magnify the Lord with me and let us exalt, lift up his name together. Isaiah 6, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, Ram Venisa, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. This is why the Jewish man is lifted up on a throne at his wedding. He's a picture of God, high and lifted up. Ram Venisa. And here we go. Now I want to pinch it together down to a nice little point. Let's see if you can get there. Everything Jewish is lifted up, right? Yep. God's name is lifted up, yes? Therefore, God's name is Jewish. God's throne is lifted up. Therefore, God's throne is Jewish. Get it? You get it? If it's not a Jewish throne, it ain't God. If it's not a Jewish throne, it's not God. It may be somebody lifted up and exalted, but it ain't God. Does that make sense? It's a very, very simple 1 + 1 = 2. And you can do that with this. You're allowed to. Some things you can't do that with, but you can with this. You can just go, this plus this equals this. Because why? It happens hundreds of times in the Bible. We're just looking at a few. This is Ram, Yarum. All right, here's the last one. Kum. Say kum. You know what that means? Arise or risen up. Wake up! That's kum in Hebrew. Kum. So, like if you're reading in the Bible, in the New Testament, and it says, and Christ said, wake thou up. It doesn't say that. Or it'll say, Canst thou not stay awake with me for 1 hour? Right. What it says is, can't you wake up for even an hour? Can't you coom? Because coom is it's like this. It's like a zombie coming up out of the grave. Fast. Coom. Coom. Arise. It's not like coom. It's not like that in Hebrew. It is instantaneous. And all the verses that say coom in the Bible are written in Hebrew like that. It's instantaneous. There's no lead up to it. There's no gentleness about it. It's just, get up! All right, Isaiah 49. Well, wait, first, before we do this, look at the different words. We have raise up, lahakim. Raised up, yeromon. Raise up, tekumem. Now, if you're wondering why it's it sounds different or looks different, it's because one is singular, one is plural, one is feminine, one is masculine. Isaiah 61, raise up, yakumemu. Same word, just different tense, yakumemu. And then Amos 9, akim, akim. Same word, kum, akim. Isaiah 49, he says, is it too small a thing that you should be my servant to lahakim, the tribes of Jacob? What? To raise up the tribes of Jacob? All Jewish things are raised up. Who's being raised up here? All the Jews. Now, this is the bottom line of the whole concept, is that, I mean, you may be scared of this, which I get, but this is the bottom line of the whole concept in the scriptures. God is going to raise up the Jews. Now, I say that to you, and you're like, yes, okay, that's fine. Yes, maybe in time that will occur. Yes, in the future, yes, God will raise up the Jews. There's beloved chosen people. Not what I'm saying. I'm saying that God is going to raise them up over everybody. That's what the scriptures say, over and over and over. He's going to raise up the Jews over everybody else. Why? Because we are the smallest and the most humble. Now, if you have a problem with that, that's because of pride. It's only because of pride. So you got to check your heart. And I say that because Romans 11 says that very, very clearly. If you have a problem thinking to yourself, the Jewish people are the smallest, most humble, most beat down nation on earth, you have pride. And God is going to remove the oppressing foot that's on Israel, and they're going to boom and be over the whole world. And if you think that's elitism or racism, it's because of your pride. It just is. That's what Romans 11 says. You can go check that. You can go read that for yourself and look at the word arrogance that shows up twice and why it shows up, speaking to Gentiles. So God says, is it too small a thing that you should be my servant, lahakim, to raise up, to wake up the tribes of Jacob and restore the treasured of Israel? What's the treasured of Israel? The people, the Jews. They're the treasured of Israel, treasured by God. I will make you a light to the Gentiles, so my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. That's not going to happen unless Gentiles go to the Jews and say, teach me about God. It's not going to happen. I mean, Jews aren't going to go to Gentiles, are they? Are they? Because if they do, they'll be slaughtered. If Jews go to Gentiles and say, you're wrong in what you believe, here's the truth, what's going to happen? Right. It's going to be a madhouse. And so the Jews just keep their mouths shut and stay small. And they just mind their own business. We mind our own business. But the time is going to come when God is going to crush the foot that's on top of Israel. The oppression of the Gentiles that are on top of Israel, and then Israel's going to just spring up. And the Gentiles will come up to Jerusalem and come to know God, if they want to. If they want to. And will be a light to the Gentiles, so that Yeshua may reach to the ends of the earth, because that's what it says in Hebrew. So Yeshua can then reach to the end of the earth. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard, there's going to be a revival when all the world hears about Jesus Christ, then he will come. That's not true. That's not true. When the Jewish people rise up and become the light to the Gentiles, then Yeshua will reach to the ends of the earth. The gospel will reach to the ends of the earth. But it's the Jews who have the gospel. Gavoa alilach meveseret Tzion. Get up on a high mountain, Jerusalem, bearer of the gospel. Isaiah 49. To restore the land, saying to those who are bound, go free. He who has compassion on them will lead them. He will guide them to springs of water. I will make all my mountains a road, and my highways will be Yerumon, will be raised up. Where do you think those roads are going to lead to? Rome? All roads lead to Rome now. But where are all roads going to lead to in the kingdom? Jerusalem, up to Jerusalem. And all the highways will be Yerumon, raised up. Behold, these will come from afar, and these will come from the north, and these will come from the west, and everybody will come up to Jerusalem to get to know God. And who's going to teach them God? The priests, the Jews. Isaiah 58. Those from among you, now I love this verse, but it's hard to explain. It's hard to pick apart this verse and really understand it unless you take about 10 or 15 minutes to do it. Those from among you. Now he's talking to Judah here. And he says in the future, in the day of the Lord, Bayom Hahu, in that day, in the future, those from among you, Judah, the Jews, will rebuild the ancient ruins. Now the ancient ruins isn't just a bunch of cities. The ancient ruins is Judaism. It's Judaism. And it lies in rubble because we have no temple. But in days to come, that will be restored. And we know this because God promises he's going to restore Judaism to the body of Messiah. It says in Acts chapter 1. He says in Acts chapter 1, the days of the restoration of all things. That's what it's called. The restoration of all things. So the Jewish people, are going to rebuild the ancient ruins. We don't need Christians to do it. We don't need Christians to rebuild the temple. We don't need Christians to rebuild the body of Messiah. Because when they do it, they bring in all the Gnosticism and Gentile ways and paganism and all the wrong pictures. But once God has the Jews with the pictures, then we will rebuild his ways. We will. Those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins. You will raise up tekumim, the age-old foundations. Foundation. What's the foundations of Judaism? Torah. Right. Do you see Torah in the body of Messiah? It's just not there. But we're going to raise it up. It's going to be brought back into the body. You will be called the repairer of the breach. So picture a wall, and Hellenism has just blasted that wall apart. Who's going to rebuild it? Israel. From among you, Israel, Jews. Right. You're going to rebuild it. You're going to repair the breach in the wall. You're going to be called the restorer of the streets in which to dwell. Now, all this restoration work, restoration is restoring what was lost. Yes? Okay. Now, I'm saying that's going to be brought back into the body of Messiah. That means it was there in the beginning. There was no such thing as Christianity. There was no such thing as a St. Paul and St. Peter and all that sort of stuff. There was nothing like that. It was all Judaism. But it got lost. All the Jewish stuff got lost from the body. It's going to be brought back in. We're going to bring it back in. It got kicked out, right. Isaiah 61. So they will be called oaks of righteousness planted by the Lord, so that he can be ramumim, glorified, lifted up. Then they will rebuild the ancient ruins. There it is again. It's not talking about cities. It's talking about Judaism. They will rebuild the ancient ruins. They will yakumemu. They will raise up the former devastations and repair the ruined cities, desolations of eons, 2,000 years of no Judaism. Now, I'm saying it's not talking about cities, but there it says the word cities. So why am I saying it's not about cities? I'm saying it because this last verse that we looked at last week too, Amos 9 says, in that day, Akim, I will raise up the fallen sukkah of David, wall up its gaps, there's the gap again, blasting through the wall, raise up Akim its ruins, and rebuild it as in the days of old, the way it used to be, so that they may possess the remnant of Edom, all the Gentiles called by my name. In Acts chapter 15, we looked at it last week, Jacob says this verse and says, that's what's happening now. We Jews are teaching the Gentiles in the synagogue every week where Moshe is preached. And he says this in Acts chapter 15. So don't worry about them. They're learning Judaism. Don't worry. God is restoring the Jews and the Gentiles together into a Jewish house, a Jewish body with Jewish stuff, doing Jewish things, and all of it is lifted up to show God. All of it. It no longer exists. It no longer exists in God's body. But very slowly, very, very slowly, one thing is being added, and then another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and it's chaos. Because as soon as one thing is added, 57 Gentiles give 57 opinions about what it is. And it's all wrong, all of it. But that's okay. It's all right. Because at least they have it, and they're looking at it, and they're thinking about it. I just got a write-up from a woman, a Gentile woman, who got this big teaching about Shemini Atzeret, the 8th day. Everything in it is wrong. Every single thing. But it's all right, because she's working with it. It's like, like a piece of clay. She's trying. She's working with it. Well, she didn't do anything about Shemini Atzeret 5 years ago. What did she care? She was going to Easter services or whatever. But now, Gentiles are beginning to start playing with this stuff and thinking about it and working with it. And it is going to be a mess until they go to a Jew and go, is this right? And the Jew goes, that's ridiculous. Where'd you get that from? Well, the Holy Spirit showed me. Well, that's not what we know. Here's what we know. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, okay, I guess it wasn't the Holy Spirit who told me that. I get it. That's amazing. And then everybody begins to learn it together. But it's going to be a mess until that happens. But that's what God is doing. And why? Because every single Jewish thing has to be raised up. Now, if you see it happening around you with Christians, like somebody will take a little Jewish thing and they'll go, well, we don't do that. And they push it down, don't let them. Don't let them. Be nice, but don't let them. Or somebody says, Judaism says, I learned this from Rashi, and they raise up some little Jewish thing, and then all the Christians go, well, no, because Christianity teaches. Don't let them. Be nice, but don't let them. But be nice, be kind, be loving. But don't let them. Because every Jewish thing has to be raised up. We got 5 words that you can do many, many, many studies on. I just gave you a thimbleful. But there's so much more for you to look up in these words. But what you're going to find is that it's consistent, that it's always, always something Jewish. In Jewish culture, what they call tradition, but what we call pictures, always, 100% of the time. So let's say this prayer again. Now it should make a little more sense. I can't remember the tune. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan et kol darkav, lemo Yisrael kehetavniot, lekol hadevarim, sheba shamayim. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who has given all of his ways to his people Israel as pictures of all things heavenly. Let's stand for the Aliyah. All things heavenly. Oops. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. Let us adore the Lord of all, who in greatness created the world from of old, that he has not made us like the nations of the earth, not made us like the families of the land. He has not made our destiny like theirs, or cast our lot with all of them. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz b'yom hahu Yiyeh Adonai echad, Ushemo echad. And it is said, the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. Va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim. Lifnei melech malachei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. And we bend the knee and bow in worship and give thanks to the King of Kings, the Holy One. Blessed is he. We acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like him. There is nothing but him, as Torah says. Know that the Lord, he is God in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. Ein od milvado. There is nothing else but him. Shabbat shalom. Let's do Kiddush, please.